आई होप सब लोग अच्छे होंगे। आज टुडे द क्लास वुड बी ऑन द जीएसटी रिटर्न and it is very interesting and today is the last class. ठीक है, from my side. I hope you all have enjoyed the discussion classes which I have taken. Total 9 classes I have taken. I hope you all have enjoyed. Today class we are going to have some theoretically as well as some on the GST live portal, government portal, GST. Okay. So it would be the combination of both so that we are going to learn something new out of the today class. So let me talk about first the details of outward supply. GSTR 1 we know. Let me discuss in detail. Section 37 read with rule 59. Very good evening to all. Section 37 read with rule 59. Every registered person other than ISD, in short I will tell the name as NRTP, non-resident taxable person, composition levy, TDS and TCS. Apart from these person, the rest registered person will furnish electronically subject to such condition and restriction in such form, such manner as may be prescribed, the details of the outward supply on or before 10th day of the month succeeding the said tax period. It means as per the law, it talks about that we have to furnish the GSTR1. We have to furnish the GSTR1 by 10th of next month. Okay. Now the proviso says that commissioner can extend the time limit. By using the power of commissioner, they have extended the time limit. For monthly taxpayer, it is 11th, and for quarterly taxpayer, it is 13th of succeeding said tax period. What does it mean? Suppose I am filing the GSTR1 on monthly basis. Irrespective of my turnover, my due date to file the GSTR1 would be 11. See, in the law, what is the date? In the law, the date was 10, and however, the proviso says that commissioner can extend the time limit. Commissioner can extend the time limit. And by using the power, the commissioner by notification 83, they have extended the time limit to 11th in case of monthly, and in case of the quarterly, what is the QRMP scheme we will discuss in detail. But remember the due date is 13 after the end of the quarter. Every registered person who has furnished the detail under subsection 1 for any tax period shall, upon discovery of any error or omission, they can rectify the error or omission as may be prescribed and shall pay the tax and interest. In case there is a short payment of the tax on account of the error or omission in the return to be furnished for such tax period. Okay. Provided that, now this clause talks about what is the last date to rectify the error or omission. The no rectification of error or omission shall be allowed after 30th day of November following the end of the financial year to which such detail pertain, or furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier. Can anybody tell me in which provision this time limit is also same? Can you please tell me in which provision of the GST this is the same time limit mentioned anywhere else? Kahan pe hai? Please tell me. Same time limit, 30 November या furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier, we have or not we have. This is exactly same provision somewhere else also. Can you please tell me where the same provision are given in the GST law? Now, this was only for 1718. So initially for 1718, that time limit has been extended till the due date of the March month return. So we can ignore that. What is what 1718. Now, a registered person shall not be allowed to furnish the details of the outward supplies if the details of the outward supply has not been furnished. Meaning thereby, when you cannot furnish the GSTR1, it talks about that if the previous tax period ka GSTR1 is not furnished, you cannot file the GSTR1 of next period. Previous period GSTR1 is not filed, you cannot furnish the GSTR1 of subsequent tax period. Again, government has the power to notify and then allow to furnish the same in some condition, with some condition and restrictions. The answer is ITC. Refund में ये नहीं है. No beta. In this, refund is not. In the input tax credit, this is the time limit in the 16 subsection 4. In the time limit to issue the credit note or to declare the credit note in section 34 subsection 2, exactly same provisions. Rectification of error or omission in the GSTR1. Time limit to issue the credit note in section 34 subsection 2. Time limit to take the ITC in 16 subsection 4. This is the same provision. 30th November or furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier. Please do not do the mistake. Earlier we were talking about due date of September month return. Now the word due date has been omitted. They have fixed the date as 30th November. It is not that the due date of the November month return. No, it is 30th November. You file any GSTR1 or any GSTR3B for ITC I'm talking about, and for GSTR1 I'm talking about error or omission. It is linked to the due date of the return. Answer is no. Any return which is being furnished by 30th November, you have to rectify the error or omission by that return, in that return. Yes, Shivam, it is reaching to me. Shivam, it is coming to me. Shivam, Geeta, Kaushiki, सभी का reply मुझे आ रहा है. I am able to see the reply. Now, rule 59 talking about every registered person other than section 14. It is OIDAR, Online Information Database Access Retrieval, required to furnish the details of outward supplies of goods or services or both under section 37 shall furnish the detail in the form. They have given the form number that yes, we have to furnish the details in the GSTR1 for the month or for the quarter as the case may be. The registered person requiring to furnish the return for every quarter under the proviso to subsection 1 of section 39. So we will discuss in section 39 subsection 1. There is a concept of QRMP. If my aggregate turnover does not exceed 5 crore, I have the option to opt the QRMP scheme. If I am going under QRMP scheme, then my GSTR3B and GSTR1 would be quarterly, not monthly. But for monthly, there would be the IFF and PMT06. What is that? We'll discuss in detail. So for the time being, if I have opted QRMP, then for month 1 and month 2, I will file IFF. What is the full form of IFF? Invoice Furnishing Facility instead of the GSTR1. Because in case of the QRMP, GSTR1 would be furnished on quarterly basis. Therefore, for month 1 and month 2, the B2B transaction would be added in the IFF. The biggest advantage of the IFF, suppose I have opted QRMP, okay, and you are my customer. You are registered in the GST, and let's say you are under monthly scheme. Then if I file GSTR1 after the end of the quarter, you would be eligible to take the ITC after the quarter only. To facilitate this particular categories of the transaction wherein supplier is under QRMP, so they have given the system, given the IFF mechanism, invoice furnishing facility mechanism, by the QRNP taxpayer for month 1 and month 2 to facilitate the recipient to take the ITC in the same tax period. Is it clear? I hope it is clear. Kindly confirm. Though they are saying the registered person to furnish the return for every quarter under 39(1), they have to furnish the for month 1 and month 2 IFF. What is the IFF? Invoice Furnishing Facility. The limit is that IFF has to be furnished by 13th of next month. Second, it will be only B2B transaction. Third, you cannot enter B2C, etc. Document number. Fourth, maximum value can be of the 50 lakh. Maximum value can be of the 50 lakh rupees. Okay. So during the COVID period, the date was extended. So we are not considered, we are ignoring that proviso. Okay. So the details of the invoices which I have entered in the IFF for month 1, month 2, the same would not be added again while filing the GSTR1. Same would not be added again while filing the GSTR1. Okay. Now, what would be the details in the GSTR1? Invoice-wise details. So now I am moving to the GST portal. I'm going to the GST portal. Allow me 1 minute so that I can show you the format or some basic information of the GSTR1 online. I hope you are able to see the screen. एक बार confirm करें. Please confirm that you are able to see the GST portal or not. GST portal or not. In the services tab under the return, I am clicking on the return dashboard. In the return dashboard, let's say I have clicked on the March. In the March, GSTR1, GSTR2A, GSTR2B, and this is for QRMP GSTR2B. What is the GSTR1? Details of the outward supply. GSTR2A and 2B, it is the auto drafted detail 2A. And what is the 2B? Auto drafted ITC statement. Correct. So let me click on the GSTR1. So when you see the GSTR1, so there is an option to file the nil return. Suppose I do not have any detail in the GSTR1. Simply I can click here. I can click here and submit the nil GSTR1 at a very fast. So I can simply click on the above and then generate the summary and then proceed to file. It will redirect me to the OTP last stage. Now after that, suppose I have some information, then what is the details I need to enter in the GSTR1? I'll explain in the broader sense, not go into the every table, but I will explain in the broader sense. Okay. This particular table 4A, 4B, 6B, 6C, it is B2B transaction. B2B means business to business. It means the recipient is registered person. I have to give the detail invoice wise. Suppose I have the 10 invoices, I have to give 10 times. Let me just click on the one table so that you will have the fair idea about this table as well. So I will suppose I have some record. So I will add the record and then I will enter the GST number of the recipient. So like once you enter the GST number, the invoice number, invoice date, place of the supply, IRN date source, it will be from e-invoicing if applicable. And these are the rate wise I have to give the information. Correct. So if it is a deemed export or supply to the SEZ unit on payment of IGST or on LUT, RCM, and these are 65% tax credit. So these are the features available in the GST portal. But broadly, I can say if it is B2B transaction, whether it is supply to the deemed export or supply to the SEZ unit or outward supplies covered under RCM, or it is a normal transaction, I will enter the invoice wise information. I will enter the details, multiple details for each invoices separately. I will enter the detail separately for each invoices. Correct? So now go back. If it is a B2B transaction, whether it is inter or intra, I will enter the detail invoice wise. So I hope it is clear. The invoice wise details of all interstate supply or intrastate supply made to registered person. Now we are talking about unregistered person. Now we are talking about unregistered person. So going back to the portal, in case of unregistered person, B2C, there are two tables. In case of the unregistered person, B2C supplies, there are two tables. What is the table? One is the table 5 and one is the table 7. What is the difference between table 5 and table 7? The table 5 is B2C large plus interstate. What is the meaning of the large? Where invoice value is more than 2.5 lakhs. Where invoice value is more than 2.5 lakhs. If invoice value is more than 2.5 lakh, then you will enter in this particular table 5A. It is invoice wise information. And table 7, it is consolidated information. It is not invoice wise, it is consolidated. It means rate wise and state wise, you will do the consolidation. What does it mean? Suppose I have supplied 10 invoices B2C, then, and if it is not more than 2.5 lakh and enter, I will give the details in the table 7. But all are, suppose one tax rate 18%. I will consolidate all invoice, but segregate into the state wise. There are 3 invoices for UP, 2 invoices for Delhi, rest invoices in Haryana. So I will give the consolidated details, 3 for UP, 2 for Haryana, rest for Delhi, or vice versa. For every state and every rate, I will consolidate. It is not the invoice wise information. So if I'll talk about the table 7, if I will talk about the table 7, then I can say it will consist to information. If it is interstate, then invoice value up to rupees 2.5 lakhs will cover or will reported in the table 7. Why? Because in the table 5, if it is inter and large, that is more than 2.5 lakh, you have given in the table 5A. So it means in the interstate, if it is up to 2.5 lakh, it will come in the table 7. If it is more than 2.5 lakh, it will come in the table 5A. What is the difference? Table 7 is the consolidated information. Table 5 is the invoice wise information. Consolidation would always have rate wise and state wise, place of the supply wise. Fine. But what about intra? Intra-state, any value, intra-state, any value, whether it is more than 2.5 lakh or up to 2.5 lakh, both transaction or all transaction of intrastate supply would be reported in the B2C only, table 7. Let's see, because it is B2C, obviously it will not ask the GST number. It is simply asking me to select place of supply. Let's say the taxable value is 1 lakh and let's say tax rate is 18%. So 1,18,000. This 1 lakh is a one invoice. It can be one or it can be multiple for this place of supply. I hope it is clear. B2C, let me read the details which I have to give for B2C. Interstate, more than 2.5 lakh, B2C, will have the invoice wise details, but if intrastate for every value and interstate up to 2.5 lakh, that detail will be the consolidated details of B2C supplies. Okay. Now, the debit and credit note issued for that supplies. Let's move to the GST portal once again. Table 8 is the nil rated and exempt supplies. Table 6A is the export. 6B is the supply to the SEZ unit. 6C is the deemed export. Table 4A is the normal B2B supply. And table 4B is outward B2B supply on which you will not pay the tax, customer will pay the tax. Suppose I am registered advocate, or I am registered transporter and making the supply to the XYZ Limited. Because I am registered, even though my outward supplies covered under RCM, I have to report in the GST-R1. So that will be reported in the table 4B. Okay. So, and there is a debit credit note for registered and unregistered. There is table 11. So if I have received the advance for supply of goods or services, which advance is taxable in the GST? Can you please tell me which advance is taxable in the GST in the current date? Is it for goods? Is it for services, or both, or nothing? Can you please tell me which advance is taxable? I need to pay the GST on advance for service, for goods, for both, or for nothing? The answer would be for services. Okay. So if I have received the advances on which I have paid the taxes, and in the subsequent month, when I will issue the tax invoice, so I will report anywhere in the table 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I will adjust the advances on which I have paid the taxes in the earlier period. So there is a separate table. Correct. So then there is a table called table 12 HSNY summary, and the table 13 is the document issued. For HSNY summary, we all know if my turnover is up to 5 CR, okay, then for B2B, it's 4 digit. For B2C, it is optional. And if my turnover greater than 5 crore, whether it is B2B or B2C, 6 digit for all supply. So this is the HSN requirement. Document issued, we all know there are multiple documents like tax invoice, revised invoice, bill of supply, delivery challan, correct, refund voucher, payment voucher, self invoice. All these numbering would come here, like invoice for outward supplies, invoice for inward supply from unregistered. So it is self invoicing, revised invoice, debit note, credit note, receipt voucher, payment voucher, a refund voucher, and last 4 are delivery challan, which is being mentioned in the rule 55. Let me go back to the notes. I hope this is clear. Interstate supply, if it is invoices having more than 2.5 lakh, then invoice wise detail to be uploaded. If it is up to 2.5 lakh, then state wise consolidated to be uploaded, state wise, rate wise to be consolidated. Okay. If it is intrastate supply, any value will goes to the table 7, that is consolidated. Okay. And if it is B2B, whether it is inter or whether it is intra, all will be reported invoice wise. No consolidation option available for B2B supplies. There's a question that why there is a different table for nil supplies. Nil rate is also specified tax rate? No. Specified tax rate means, suppose in the rate notification, there are certain supplies of in services, there are 3 line items. Okay. So for any supply against which nil rate is specified. It means there is no rate of tax. There is no rate of tax. So that is nil or exempted. Correct. There are certain supply of service which are exempted. Correct. Or non-taxable supplies like alcoholic liquor or petrol on which there is no tax. So we have to specify in that particular table 8. Is it clear? Kindly confirm or ask counter question. Kaushiki, there is no concept of more than 1,000 rupees in this particular GSTR1, but however, this concept is there in the refund chapter, which we have discussed. For IFF, the invoice-wise details of inter or intrastate only for the registered person, because unregistered, you cannot give the information in the IFF. Debit and credit note. Debit and credit note, if any issued during the month for the invoices which is being issued previously. Notwithstanding anything contained in this rule, a registered person shall not be allowed to furnish the details of the outward supply. See, they are restricting. Not be allowed to furnish the GSTR1 if GSTR3B for the preceding month has not been furnished. It means previous month GSTR3B or previous month GSTR1 is not being furnished, then he cannot furnish the GSTR1 of the subsequent period. Correct? Registered person required to furnish the return for every quarter QRMP shall not be allowed to furnish the R1 or IFF if he has not furnished the 3B for the preceding tax period. It means for one quarter, if he has not furnished GSTR 3B, then subsequent month or subsequent tax period for M1, M2, he cannot furnish IFF, and for month 3 after the end of the quarter, he is not allowed to furnish GSTR1. That's excellent. A registered person to whom intimation has been issued on the common portal under Rule 88C in respect of the tax period shall not be allowed to furnish the R1 or using IFF if he has not deposited the amount specified in that intimation. So there is a concept that if there is a difference in the liability, it would be communicated. And Rule 88C talks about that recipient has to take the particular supplier has to take one action. Either he has to deposit the tax or he has to furnish the explanation. If he has failed to do so, then he cannot furnish the R1 or IFF or subsequent tax period. Clear, Anna? So these are the restriction in which the GSTR1 or IFF is not allowed. Okay. Now we are talking about inward supply. So section 38, read with rule 60. So rule 59 we have completed and section 37 we have completed. Now we are moving to the section 38 and read with the rule 59 we have completed, rule 60. Okay. My one request to all of you, one humble request to all of you, if you like the way of teaching and if you feel that yes, it is good for your study purpose, then I would request that kindly send the true feedback to the board of study on their email ID. मेरी एक रिक्वेस्ट है आपसे, अगर आपको लगता है कि मैंने सही पढ़ाया और आप लोग चाहते हैं कि मैं कंटिन्यू करूं फॉर सब्सिक्वेंट बैचेस, देन माय ओनली हम्बल रिक्वेस्ट, ट्रू फीडबैक. अगर आपको लगता है पॉजिटिव, अगर आपको लगता है कोई इंप्रूवमेंट नेगेटिव, यू कैन फील फ्री टू टेल टू द बोर्ड ऑफ स्टडीज द ट्रू फैक्ट टू बी डिस्क्लोज टू द बोर्ड ऑफ स्टडीज फॉर माय टीचिंग. ठीक है. सो दिस इज माय हम्बल रिक्वेस्ट. इट विल हेल्प मी either in continuing the batches or in terms of improvement. In both way, it will help me. So please provide your true feedback to the board of studies on their email ID, not copy to me, and even you do not have my email ID. Okay. Now coming to the next point, communication of the details of inward supplies and ITC. So point to be noted that earlier section 38 and rule 60, which talks about GSTR2. One thing I like to tell you that from 1st October 2022, the date by which the Finance Act 2022 was made effective, almost all the provision of the Finance Act 22 was made effective. This is the major change. This is the major changes in the GST return. So what was earlier, that law was talking about something else. and the portal was talking else. Law was talking prior to 1st October 2022. The law was talking about GSTR1, GSTR2, GSTR3. But the GSTN portal is talking about GSTR1 and 3B. That's it. There is no concept of GSTR2. There is no concept of GSTR3. But the law, the section, and the rules were having the information or were having the reference of the GSTR2, GSTR3, two-way communication. Multiple provisions has been omitted. Multiple provisions has been omitted. Wide Finance Act 22 made effective from 1/10/2022. What was happened after that? The major things that both were aligned. What were both? The law and the GST portal, both were aligned. Two-way communication. The supplier will file the R1. You being a recipient, you will accept, reject in the GSTR2. It will communicate it to me in the GSTR1A. I will modify, rectify, something like that. All the things which were there in the law has been omitted because the things has not been implemented completely. There are majorly two written, GSTR1 and GSTR3B were being filed by the registered person. So that has been made in the corresponding changes has been made in the law. Okay. Now we are talking about section 38, communication of the details of inward supplies and ITC. The details of outward supplies furnished by the registered person under 37 subsection 1, correct, and of such other supplies as may be prescribed, okay, and an auto-generated statement containing the details of ITC. What was the auto-generated statement? See the portal. Auto-drafted detail in GSTR2A and auto-drafted ITC statement in the GSTR2B. So they are saying an auto-generated statement containing the details of the ITC shall be made available to the recipient in such manner, in such time, in such condition as may be prescribed. Okay. Auto-generated statement shall consist of what it should consist of: details of inward supply in respect of which credit of the ITC may be available to the recipient. Let me go to the okay. So it will consist the details of which I can take the input tax credit. Okay. Details of the supply in respect of credit cannot be availed whether wholly or partly by the recipient on account of the details being furnished by the supplier in section 37 subsection 1. Allow me 1 minute. I will also open that GSTR2B, which would help you. So if you see the March month GSTR2B, you click on the view, they are saying cannot download after before particular date. Okay. Let me go to the fab and let me download that GSTR2B. एक मिनट मैं आपको शो करता हूं ये पर्टिकुलर in the GSTR 2A or 2B, you can see the ITC which is available and the ITC which is not available. Why the ITC would not be available? The reason number 1, it can be because of supplier and place of the supply is in one state and the recipient is in another state. It may be because the time limit to take the input tax credit 16.4 is being expired. and after that supplier has furnished the details. It may be possible. So because of all these reasons, you cannot take the input tax credit, and that will be specified in the GSTR inward statement, GSTR 2A as well as 2B. So they are saying details of the supply in respect of such credit cannot be availed whether wholly or partly by the recipient by any registered person within such period. See section 38 subsection 2 clause B, which is a very dangerous section, for input tax credit, because they are restricting the ITC in a very much minute level. Let's see. By any registered person within such period of taking registration as may be prescribed. By any registered person who has defaulted in payment of tax and where the default has been continued for such period as may be prescribed. Okay. Any registered person output tax payable by him in accordance with the GSTR1 has exceed the output tax by him in the GSTR3B. So if I am a supplier, you are a recipient, you have to check whether I have furnished the details in case of the new registration within the time as may be specified. Whether I am defaulted in payment of tax and defaulted continue for some period, how many days it will be prescribed. For GSTR 1 and 3B, if there is a difference, I have paid the short taxes for such period as may be prescribed. Any registered person who's during the such period as may be prescribed, the ITC exceed the credit that can be available in accordance with the clause A. What is the clause A? Clause A, it means ITC taken in accordance with the auto drafted statement, that is GSTR 2B. Suppose I am a supplier, then you have to check my ITC that whether I have taken correct ITC or not. How you can check the supplier details? So this is the problem in future. Why I am talking about in future? Because for any prescribed, there has to be the rules. Then only the provision will come into the effect. As of now, the rules has not been specified for section 38 subsection 2 clause B. No rule has been made available as of now for 38 2B. So provision is made effective, but as of now there is no rules, so actually it is not being implemented. So as a reason, abhi jo ITC hai, we are taking the ITC according to 2B and all other condition of 16(2). But the time when the rules would be prescribed for these provisions, and then ITC would be tougher in that at that point of time in future. Correct? By registered person that we have talked about, okay, by any registered person who has defaulted in discharging the tax liability in accordance with section 49 subsection 12. So by such other person as may be prescribed. So still the rules has to be made, then only 38 2B will come into the picture. Now the rule 60, this is already available. They are talking about GSTR 2A and GSTR 2B. The details of outward supply furnished by the supplier in the GSTR 1 or IFF, it will be available in the part A of GSTR 2A or form GSTR 4A or GSTR 6A through the common portal. What is the 4A? What is the 6A? So first, let me tell you the part A of the GSTR 2A. So in the part A of GSTR 2A, you can see the B2B invoices, you can see the credit note, debit note, you can see the amendment to the B2B invoices or amendment to the debit credit note. Okay. So this is the details of the outward supplies furnished in the GSTR 1 or IFF shall be made available electronically to the recipient in the part A. Okay. What is the 2A, what is the 4A, and what is the 6A? If I am a recipient, okay, and I have taken the registration under regular category, then the auto-populated detail will come in the GSTR 2A, okay, as well as 2B. If I have registered under composition scheme, then my auto-populated statement will be GSTR 4A. And if I have taken the registration in case of the input service distributor, then the details would be auto-populated. The details would be auto-populated in the GSTR 6A. If I have taken the registration under the ISD category, so what is the purpose of ISD? So ITC can be distributed. So that will be auto-populated in my 6A. These are the differences in 2A, 4A, and 6A. But yes, when the supplier will furnish the GSTR1, it will come in the 2A, 4A, or 6A. Now, next, the details of invoice furnished by the NRTP, non-resident taxable person, in the GSTR 5. It shall be made available to the recipient in Part A of the GSTR 2A. If my supplier is non-resident taxable person and he will make the supply, it will also be available in my GSTR 2A and in that Part A. Same, if the details of invoices furnished by the ISD in the GSTR 6. Now we are talking about in my, suppose there is a chain. Let me explain the chain. So when supplier file GSTR1, it will be available in 2A or 4A or 6A. 6A is the ISD category. Now this person, recipient who is registered under ISD category, he will also furnish GSTR 6. He will also furnish GSTR 6. Now, when he will furnish the GSTR 6, then the details would come in the GSTR 2A of recipient, because this will not be there. So if I am registered under ISD category, then I will transfer my ITC to my branches to my another GST number under regular category. So the transfer of ITC would happen through GSTR 6. You being a recipient, or you are my branch, same pen multiple GST, and then it will appear in 2A as well as in 2B. I hope this part is clear. Okay. Let me see that if I can show you that B2B invoices. Correct. GSTR1, IFF, GSTR5 filing status. Okay. Okay. So fine. Any doubt now? If you have any doubt, kindly ask at the same time. There is no problem. So it would be easy for me to explain at the same point of time, either by lock-up provision, or I can travel to the GST portal. Okay. Then they are saying the details of TDS furnished by the deductor under 39 subsection 3 in the GSTR 7 shall be made available in the Part C of the GSTR 2A. What is meaning? So the supplier is government, correct? Not the supplier, sorry. It is the recipient. So suppose Mr. A is making the supply to the government, or government is making the supply to A. Individual, correct? It is not the government entity. Please give me the answer in which case the TDS under section 51 would be applicable. In the clause A, option A, or option B, or in both the cases the TDS would be applicable, or in none of the case TDS would be applicable. I am talking about TDS under GST would be applicable in which case? Option A, option B, option C, or option D? Thank you. It is under option A. It is under option A. When the recipient is the government, then the TDS would be deducted. Correct. So now the government deduct the TDS and furnish the GSTR 7. Furnish the GSTR 7. Now they will deduct the TDS, furnish the GSTR 7. Then this TDS जो भी deduct किया, it will appear in the GSTR 2A of Mr. A. In which part? In which part? Part B. Sorry, Part C of the GSTR 2A. You can go and check. This is Part B. Part B is the ISD credit, which we have talked about just now. Part C is the TDS credit or TCS credit. TDS or TCS category. So, in the case of the TDS deducted or TCS collected of the supplier, the e-commerce operator of the government, when they file GSTR 8 or GSTR 7, then the corresponding tax component will appear in the Part C of the Mr. A, which Mr. A in my example who is a supplier. Okay. Then the same for TCS, we have already discussed the details of integrated tax paid, details of IGST, details of IGST paid on import of the goods or goods purchased from the special economic zone unit or developer on a bill of entry. It would be available in the part D. What is the part D? What is the part D? Import of the goods purchased from out of India, overseas, or purchased from SEZ unit or developer on the bill of entry. So when TCS would be collected? Let me explain you when the TCS would be collected. See, if the e-commerce operator, if let's say Mr. A is making the supply of the goods or services through ECO, let's say to Mr. B. If A is who is a supplier and B is who is a recipient, but the supply has been made through e-commerce operator, then ECO will, the B is making the payment to ECO and ECO is making the payment to A, then he will collect the TCS at the rate of 1%. The ECO will not be, so the TCS would not be applicable if it is a e-commerce operator is a deemed supplier under 9 subsection 5. That is Ola, Uber, Oyo Rooms, Urban Clap or Swiggy, Zomato. Okay. That is the deemed supplier under 9.5, not applicable. Also, if the customer is making the payment directly to A, like OLX, okay, there is no payment being routed through OLX, correct? So then no TCS provision would be applicable. And one more case, if the e-commerce operator making the supply of the goods or services or on its own account, then also no TCS provision would be applicable. So in short, I can say if the supply of the goods or services is being made, if the supply of the goods or services is being made through e-commerce operator, which e-commerce operator? Who is not a deemed supplier under 9.5 and who is collecting the cash from recipient and then making the payment to the supplier, then while making the payment, he will collect 1% and make the payment in the through GSTR 8. Is it clear, Kaushiki? Kindly confirm. Please confirm it up. An auto-generated statement containing the details of ITC shall be made available in the GSTR2B for every month and shall consist of what would be there? The details of outward supplies furnished by supply in the GSTR1 by the due date. Meaning thereby, if the supplier, let's say we are talking about, let's say the month of February. Okay. If the GSTR1 by the supplier, if it is a monthly, then it will be 11th March. Or if it is quarterly, then he will furnish IFF by 13th. If he is furnishing by the due date, then the details would appear in the GSTR 2B for Feb to the recipient. If supplier file the GSTR1 after 11, in that case, it will, let's say he is filing the GSTR1 on 12th because IFF cannot be furnished after the due date. If the supplier file the GSTR1 after 11th, let's say 12th or 13th or 14th, any date, then the transaction would not appear in the GSTR2B of Feb. So this ITC would be auto-populated in the GSTR2B of March. It means for let's say Feb, it is 11th or 13th. For March, let's say it is 11th or 13th. So in case of the March, it would be not IFF, it would be GSTR1 only. So then it will appear in the, if the details are furnished within due date, then only it will appear in 2B of the same month. Otherwise, it will defer to the next month. That is a big problem. Even though supplier filed the GSTR1, but after 11, ITC would not be available in the same month. It would be carried forward to next month. What is the problem? The problem is GSTR2B. The details would not come in the GSTR2B in the same month because the supplier filed the R1 after the due date. What if he rectify R1 but R1 filed within due date? Then it will appear in the to be rectified. See, you have seen that amendment, correct? So rectify means amendment, correct? So when he will do the amendment in the GSTR1 and then file within the due date, then that amendment would appear in the part A, whether amendment, if amendment is B2C or amendment is with respect to credit debit note, that will also populate in the GSTR2A to B. ठीक है ना? Now the next is, so the first point, the details of outward supplies furnished by the supplier other than supplier required to furnish the returns for every quarter. The details of invoice furnished by the NRTP in GSTR5 and the details of invoice furnished by the ISD and in his return in the GSTR6, and the details of the outward supply furnished by the supplier required to furnish return for every quarter or using IFF as the case may be. Okay. Then auto-generated statement containing the details of the ITC shall be made available to the registered person in 2B for every month and shall consist of. Just Kaushiki, give me 2-3 minutes. I'll complete that rule 60. Then I will talk about in detail about 2A to B because there is some information in this clause itself. Now, the question is when the 2B would be made available for the first month of the quarter between the day immediately after the due date of the GSTR1 for the preceding quarter to the due date of the furnishing the detail using the IFF for first month of the quarter. For the second month of the quarter, between the day immediately after the due date of furnishing the detail using the IFF for the first month of the quarter to the due date of furnishing the details using the IFF for second month of the quarter. And for the third month of the quarter, because it will be the GSTR1, after the due date of the IFF of the second quarter and then the due date of the GSTR1. The details for the, so what is that? It is very, very confusing. Let me open that whiteboard and share the screen and then we'll discuss. For first month, for second month, and for third month. They are saying the, for first month, what detail would come? कौन सा detail आएगा? They are saying prior to that you have furnished the GSTR1, yes, of previous tax period from the or after the due date of the GSTR1 of the previous tax period till the due date of IFF. This detail would come in the first month IFF in the GSTR2B of the first month. So let's say I am quarterly taxpayer, QRMP, supplier, you are my recipient. So whatever the detail is being furnished after the due date of the last tax period GSTR1, what was that? 13. Correct. And let's say we are talking about Feb month. We are talking about January month. We are talking about Jan, Feb and March. So for January, we are talking about which detail would appear in your 2B for Jan, for Feb, for March. For Jan, for Feb and for March. Which detail would appear in your 2B? We are talking about that. For first Jan, they are saying the details which is being furnished by me after the due date of the GSTR1 of the previous quarter, that is obviously 13, till the due date of IFF for the current tax period, current month, that is 13th Feb. So whatever the detail has been furnished between this date, it will appear in the Jan month to be. Now for second month, so in the February month, let's say you are my customer, I am supplier, and there is only two party. I am making the supply to you, and you are downloading the GSTR2B for the Feb. Which detail would come? The detail furnished by me after the IFF of last month, that is 13th due date. So 14th onward till the 13th March. What is the due date of the IFF for the month of Feb? 13th March. So the detail furnished by me till 13th March, it will appear in 2B of the month of Feb. What about the third? When you see the March GSTR2B, which detail would come? So I can say the detail furnished by me after 14th, on or after 14th March till 13th, I can say April. This will come in the GSTR2B. So only point, if the supplier furnish the GSTR1 or IFF by the due date, expiry of the last due date till the current month due date. Okay. So from 14th to 13th, it will appear in the first month of the GSTR2B. Same for Feb, same for March. एक बार कंफर्म करना, इज इट क्लियर? कुछ क्लियर हुआ या कंफ्यूजन ज्यादा हो गया? एक बार क्लियर कंफर्म करें मुझे. So slightly confusing, but I hope it is clear with the example which I have given. Very good evening, Namrata. Clear हो गया ना? Correct. Mansa, last month till नहीं, because I am under QRMP, my due date for GSTR1 is 13. If I am monthly, then my GSTR1 ka due date is 11. If I am under QRMP, the last date or due date of the GSTR1 for the quarter is also same of IFF, that is 13. So let me go back to the due date notification 83 once again. So I think Mansa, it is clear. I hope it is clear. Registered person opting QRMP. If I have opted QRMP, I have to furnish the GSTR1 13th day of the month succeeding the such tax period, means quarter. Clear? Kaushiki, 14th December बोलिए आप ना, for Jan month 14th December to 13 Jan. Correct ना? Previous quarter का GSTR1 का due date was 13 December. Sorry. You are talking about Jan month. Sorry, I'm so sorry. So January month, it means previous December. What was the due date? 13 Jan. So from 14th Jan to 13th Feb, you should write 14th Jan to 13th Feb. Whatever the details are available in 2B, you can take the ITC in the January month. Correct, na? Now is it okay? Perfect. Mansa, I hope it is clear. The question which you have asked. Now let's move further. The details of IGST paid on import of the goods or goods purchased from DTA, goods for purchase from SEZ by the DTA, domestic tariff area, okay, on bill of entry, that will appear in the 2B. Okay. The GSTR 2B for every month shall be made available to the registered person when? After the midnight of 13. After the midnight of 13. If it is under QRMP, because there would be some supplier, if there are some supplier monthly, then the due date would be 11. So after the midnight of 11. And there would be some supplier having the due date of 13. So it would be added in the GSTR 2B by 13. So GSTR 2B would be made available for the first and second month of the quarter. That would be after 13. Let's read the language. after the due date of furnishing the details of outward supply for the said month, or in the IFF by a registered person required to furnish the return under QRMP or GSTR 111, other than those which are not under QRMP, whichever is later. So obviously later would be, so IFF or the due date of GSTR 1, which one is later? Always IFF would be later because it is 13th. So they are saying the statement for every month shall be made available to the registered person a day after the due date of IFF or R1, whichever is later. So due date of IFF is 13 and R1 ka due date is 11. Then after that, it means 13th ke baad wala, it would be available from 14th onward. And in third month, they will compare the GSTR1 for the month and GSTR1 for the quarter, whichever is later, and day after the due date. So same, 14th. Now we are moving to the GSTR3B. Now we are moving to the GSTR3B. What was written? Mansa Singh, sir, last month of the quarter, SSC has no option to opt IFF. 11th would be the due date. No. See, you have to identify whether supplier is under monthly or supplier under quarterly. If the supplier is monthly, then obviously it would be 11th, as you said correctly. If I have opted already quarterly, let's say I have opted quarterly for the Jan quarter, for Jan, Feb and March quarter. Jan to March quarter, I have opted quarterly. Then for March month, the due date would be 13th. I hope I have understood correctly your question. If not, then kindly share your counter question. If not IFF, then obviously 11th would be the last date. Fully agree with you. If not under QRMP, then no option of IFF for M1, M2. It will be GSTR1 for all the period, January, February, and March, and the due date would be 11. Okay. So now we are moving to the GSTR 3B, but before moving to the 3B, I like to show you on the portal. GSTR 3B. So they have the some information, outward supplies, inward supply. It is a monthly return. First point, it is a monthly return. It is not a quarterly return. In case of I have not opted QRMP, it is monthly return. If I have opted QRMP, then like GSTR1 is quarterly, similarly GSTR3B would be quarterly. The due date of the GSTR3B in case of the monthly, it would be 20th after the end of the month. If I am under monthly scheme, then for every month I have to file GSTR3B by 20th of next month. And if I am under QRMP, then the due date would be 22 or 24 after the end of the quarter. Why they have divided in two parts? They have divided into two parts. They have done the staggered manner so that there would be less pressure on the GSTN portal and it would not fail. Most of the time it was observed. Most of the time it was observed that yes, the system was not working in the last date. Okay. So they have divided in 3 dates, 20, 22 and 24. You can see that table. So certain state like Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, they are saying the due date would be 22nd after the end of the quarter. For certain state and the balance state, they are saying under QRMP, the due date would be 24. Okay, due date would be 24. They have divided in the staggered manner. The 22 and 24 would be only for QRMP. For monthly, whether I am under whether my aggregate turnover is below 5 CR or above 5 CR, irrespective of my turnover, if I have opted monthly, then my due date of the GSTR 3B would always be 20. Let's read the provision. What is the GSTR 3B? Section 39. Again, every registered person other than ISD, Section 10, Section 51, Section 52, because Section 10 will file the GSTR 4. Okay. ISD will file the GSTR 6. NRTP would file the GSTR 5. Okay. Section 51 will file the GSTR 7. Section 52 will file the GSTR 8. So other than those, for every calendar month or the part, they have to file the return as may be prescribed, and in the Rule 61, they have prescribed the form number GSTR 3B. Proviso to subsection 1 says that government may notify certain class of the registered person who shall furnish the return for every quarter as the case may be, as specified, subject to condition restriction specified therein. It means by the proviso to section 39, they have bring down the QRMP concept. Now, a registered person paying the tax under section 10 shall for each financial year furnish the return electronically. Once again, a registered person paying the tax under the provision of section 10 shall furnish each financial year the return in the form GSTR 4. Okay. So this is annually. This is for each financial year. Please do not say annual return, because the annual return is something different. Annual return is something different. We'll talk about the monthly return, but the frequency, earlier GSTR 4 would be required to furnish on every quarter. But what happened? They are after that, from a particular date, after they have specified the GSTR 4 would be filed after the end of the financial year till 30th after the end of the financial year. Whether B2C exempt supply. So you mean to say the GSTR 1, where we have to report the B2C exempt supply, where we have to report in the GSTR 1? Is it your question? Shruti Lakshmi, kindly confirm. This is your question, that where I have to report the exempt supply B2C in the GSTR 1. If it is correct, the question is saying, this is the question, then answer would be GSTR 1 table 8. See, every exempt supply, nil rated supply, non-GST supply would always come in the table 8, whether it is B2B or it is B2C. Table 8 is for nil rated exempted non-GST supply, and in that table 8 they have divided in 4 parts: intrastate registered, intrastate unregistered, interstate registered, interstate unregistered. So everything would come in the table 8, whether it is B2B or B2C. If it is exempted, it will come in the table 8 always. No, not required. So table number I have given only for your information purpose, so that you can correlate with these. Otherwise, table number is not important from exam point of view. There is no requirement of the table number. Correct. So you can have the better correlation with these tables. So when I told you that I will explain practically. So when we learn practically, it will remember in a longer period. But again, repeating, not required to remember the table number. Thank you so much for asking. Okay. Now the section 39 subsection 3, every registered person who is deducting the tax at source under section 51. What is the form number? GSTR 7. Correct. So rule 66 says that GSTR 7 to be furnished for the month. Every month they have to furnish by 10th of succeeding month. Again, input service distributor, they have to file GSTR 6. So by the rule 65. Okay. Non-resident taxable person, the earlier due date was 20 and now they have amended the due date. It is made 13th after the end of the calendar month. After the end of the calendar month, they have to file the GSTR 5. They have to file the GSTR 5, correct? Now, what is the next? Subsection 6 talks about the commissioner to be reason to be recorded in writing, extend the time limit to furnish the return for such class as a registered person as may be specified therein. Correct? Now, subsection 7 talks about what is the time limit or what is the due date for payment of tax. See, what is the due date for payment of the tax? In the GST, it has been given in the section 39. It is linked to the monthly return. Repeating once again, there is no separate provision for the due date of the tax payment. They have linked with the monthly return. Section 39 subsection 7 talks about the registered person shall pay the tax as per such return not later than the last date on which is required to furnish that return. It means what is the due date for payment of the taxes? The due date of the payment would be the due date of the filing of the return. Okay. Now again they are saying proviso that every registered person furnishing the return under QRMP scheme, then if one has opted QRMP, then an amount equal to the tax due, taking into account inward and outward supplies, ITC availed, tax payable and such other particular during the month or in lieu of clause A, the amount determined in such manner as may be prescribed. Now, if suppose I have opted under QRMP scheme, then point is what is the quantum of the tax which I have to pay to the government? This is quantification of the tax amount for QRMP. For QRMP, there are two methods. This says that fixed sum method, and this is called as self-assessment method. Let me repeat the name of it is fixed sum method and it is self-assessment method. What is fixed sum method? We'll discuss in detail. That is somehow you can say the another name 35%. 35% method. So we have to pay the tax of 35%. Kiska 35%? Of which month, which quarter, which tax period? We'll discuss. But QRMP will pay that tax. How much? Either he will pay according to the self-assessment method or he has to pay according to the fixed sum method. In the fixed sum method, they have fixed the amount for month 1 and month 2 for each of the taxpayer. But under self-assessment method, he has to calculate inward supply, outward supplies, ITC availed, tax payable, other particular during the month. So like a monthly taxpayer are calculating the liability. In the same method, the QRMP taxpayer has to calculate. But yes, he has another option that in lieu of the amount referred in the clause A, he can also pay, collect and determine and pay the same in other method as may be prescribed. What is being prescribed? It is being prescribed as fixed sum method. Okay, we'll discuss. And there is a self-assessment method. Let me take the one question. Sir, can we amend to exempt supply in the previous filed monthly return? No. You see, for each table, they have given the separate table for the amendment. But the GSTR1 table 8, there is no amendment table in the GSTR1. So meaning thereby, if suppose I have furnished the exempt supply in the table 8, let's say 1 lakh, but actually it was 90,000. So in the next month, I cannot amend. So what to do? The option available to me is that this 10,000 reduction in the sales, you can adjust whenever you have the positive amount. Suppose next month, there is no supply under exempt category. So this 10,000 cannot be adjusted. In the next month, let's say I have the exempt supply, the 50,000. in that case, I will report only 40,000. That is the way. And last point, that suppose there is no exempt supply at all in the remaining tax period. So what I will do, when I file my GSTR 9 annual return, I will report correct amount of the exempt supply. That is the answer. Provided further that every registered person furnishing the return under section 39 subsection 2 inward supply the goods such as the particular during the goods such form will discuss. Okay. Subsection 8. Every registered person who is required to furnish the return under subsection 1 or subsection 2 shall furnish the return for every tax period, whether or not supply of the goods or services or both have been made during such tax period. So this is called as nil return. This is called as nil return. What is under section 39 subsection 1? GSTR 3B. What is under 39 subsection 2? That is composition levy. Composite dealer will file the GSTR 4 after the end of the financial year, but he has to pay the tax on quarterly basis. The form number is the CMP 08. So GSTR 3B and CMP 08 has to be furnished every tax period, even though I have the supply or I do not have the supply. Even though I have the supply or I do not have the supply. So it talks about that 39 subsection 1 and 39 subsection 2 shall furnish the return for every tax period, whether or not any supply has been made during the tax period. Now, 39 subsection 9, where any registered person after furnishing the return under subsection 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 discover any omission or incorrect particular, then they can rectify. They can rectify by which date? Same date which we have discussed. 30th November or annual return, whichever is earlier. Okay. So this is called as a rectification. I can say it is same as section 37. 37 GSTR1 is talking about the rectification of error in the GSTR1. Again, same date, 30th November or annual return, furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier. Same for 39. That I can do the correction by 30th November after the end of the financial year or furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier. Okay. A registered person shall not be allowed to furnish GSTR 3B if the return for any previous tax period or 37(1) has not been furnished. It means if the 3B or the 1 has not been furnished, then you cannot furnish the next period 3B. Same thing which we have discussed in the GSTR1 also. In the GSTR1, we have discussed same thing. If the previous GSTR1 or previous GSTR 3B has not been furnished, then you cannot furnish the R1 also. Correct? R1 or IFF. Provided that, yes, government can allow the filing upon notification subject to certain condition and restriction as may be specified. So by this, section 39 is completed. Now we are going to read the rule 61. Every registered person other than section 14 of IGST, what is that? Online Information Database Access Retrieval Services, OIDAR, okay, or ISD or NRTP or section 10, 51, 52 shall have to furnish GSTR 3B. So GSTR 3B to be furnished by two category of the taxpayer. One is regular category of the taxpayer. Second is composite taxable person. Please note, GSTR 1 and the GSTR 3B would be furnished by the regular category of the taxpayer as well as casual taxable person. Okay. If sir CMP 08 quarterly payment of the composite dealer, if the SSC neither have any taxable transaction nor exempt transaction, then what is the logic? So Mansa, they like to make the return filing on every month or every tax period. So sequentially filing, they bring the concept of sequentially filing to lock the subsequent filing. So for that, GST are a regular category of the taxpayer and composite category of the taxpayer. So majority of the taxpayer are fall in the two categories only. If I talk about the total registration in India, out of which majority are either in the regular or composite. Okay? So they have put the control on these type of the supplier to comply the regular filing. So by that, they told that even if you do not have any supply, you have to file 3B and you have to file this particular CMP 08 always, even if it is nil or GSTR1. Okay. So probably there would be no other logic, no other logic. Okay. Sequentially filing just to implement the concept of the sequentially filing. Now they are saying we have discussed as specified under. What is that? 39 for each month on or before the 20th day of succeeding month. So what is the due date of the GSTR 3B? Section 39 subsection 1, the monthly taxpayer has to file the GSTR 3B after the end of the month till 20th of next month. And QRMP taxpayer has to file on or before the date which is being mentioned, either 22 or 24. If I am under QRMP, then I have to furnish the GSTR 3B after the end of the quarter, either by 22 of the month following the end of the quarter or by 24 after the month following the end of the quarter, depending upon the state. Every registered person required to furnish the return, okay, under sub rule 1, discharge his liability toward the tax, interest, penalty, or any other amount payable under this act or the provision of this chapter by debiting the ECL or the credit ledger, including the details in the form GSTR 3B. So they have to pay the tax by the date which is being specified. So payment of the taxes can be made through cash ledger or credit ledger, which we know in the section 49, 49A, 49B, rule 88A. You probably have had the discussion in the payment of tax chapter. Now, sub rule 3 says every registered person required to furnish the return every quarter under clause 2 of sub rule 1. What is that? Sub rule 1 and clause 2, that is QRMP. Okay. So they are saying every registered person required to furnish the return every quarter under clause 2, that is QRMP, shall have to pay the tax due. Okay. For each of the first 2 months. Now we are talking about in case of the QRMP, what would be the due date of payment of the taxes for M1 and M2? They are saying they have to pay the taxes through PMT 06. PMT 06 is nothing but the challan. And what is the due date? 25th day of the month succeeding such month. So the GSTR, so person has opted QRMP. So for month 1 and month 2, I have to pay the tax by 25th. What is the mode of the payment? The mode of the payment would be PMT 06. And quantification, there are 2 methods, fixed sum method or self-assessment method, correct? And due date is 25th, correct? For such class of the taxable person, perfect. So provided that while making the deposit, such registered person may, for the first month of the quarter, take into account balance available in the cash ledger. So, and for the second month of the quarter, take into account the balance in the cash ledger, excluding the tax due for the first month. So while making the payment, whatever the liability is there, they will exclude the amount available in the first month and second month. Okay. Then amount deposited by registered person shall be debited for the said quarter in 3B. See, I am under QRMP. I'll show you on this. Let me open that particular. Okay, so let me log in that particular portal, and you I will explain the PMT 06 and the payment, how to meet the payment. So under the services, you can the payment. In the payment, you can go to the create challan. Now in the create challan, you will see there are two methods. There are two methods or there are two options available. What is that? Monthly payment for quarterly return. See, both are PMT06 only. Both are PMT06 only. But if I am under QRMP scheme, if I am under QRMP scheme, I have to select this option. I have to select monthly payment for quarterly return and then make the payment of the tax. What is the special in this? The things which is special, if I have selected this option and make the payment, this amount would not be debited. You cannot use that amount till the filing of the GSTR 3B for that quarter. जब तक आप 3B फाइल नहीं करेंगे, this amount which you paid, it is available in the cash ledger, but that will be the block. It can be debited only when you are filing the GSTR 3B of the subsequent tax period. Or of that quarter, not subsequent tax period, of that quarter. So after the quarter, you will file the GSTR 3B by 22 or 24. In that, this month would be used. Let me select this option. Once I select this option, then they will give me two further subcategory. What is that? This is quantification of the amount to be paid by the QRMP taxpayer. So either it can be 35% challan, which is fixed sum method. I yet to explain. मैं भी explain करूंगा आपको. And that is on self-assessment basis. Means I will calculate my tax liability, my ITC, everything I will calculate and then pay the same. I hope you are having the more clarity. Now, what we have discussed, that amount deposited by the QRMP shall be debited while filing the return of the GSTR 3B for that quarter, and any claim of the refund lying in the balance, if any out of the amount deposited, shall be permitted only after 3B of that quarter. Suppose I have deposited 1 lakh, but my liability was only 80,000. Okay. So I like to take the refund of 20,000. Can I take? You can be permitted. You are permitted to take the refund only after filing of 3B. So month 1 and month 2, you will pay the taxes. But after furnishing of 3B, you can take the refund if you want. Or otherwise it will be available or it will be carried forward to the next period. That option is available. So let's take a break, and after the break, we will start rule 61. So let's take a break of 15 minutes. अभी हम 15 मिनट का break लेते हैं. We'll take the break of 15 minutes and then we'll start the further part. 15 मिनट का break लेते हैं, ठीक है? We'll resume at 7:40. We'll resume at 7:40. We'll resume at 7:40. ठीक है? So Ashok ji, please start the break. We are starting again, but let me clarify to all of you. Today being a last class from my side, please remain in the last 15 minutes. We are going to revise the entire chapter through quick round of the question answer. Okay. There is one question. Let me handle the question first of Shivam. I have taken the ITC of import in September 22, but the same has got populated in December for the first time due to the technical error. Since there was no such condition to match to be back in the September 22, I have taken that. Now it's getting auto-populated in 3B. How shall I consider it, as I have already taken the ITC in September and any change in 3B would lead to red alert and notice? See, the point is, the first thing is clear that you will not take again. Okay. So you can simply remove from the auto-populated amount. What will happen? You are taking the less ITC. So there is no problem. Neither you will receive the notice, nor there will be a red flag. So there is a concept of RFR, red flag reports. So it will not be red flag report also because you have taken the IT. So probably for the September, it might that it is appearing in the red color and you may receive the notice probably, but do not have the issue. Why do not have the issue? Because Rule 36 sub rule 4 is restricting the ITC only where the corresponding supplier filed the GST-R1. Read the language of the 36.4, which has been substituted from 1/1/2022. 16 subsection 2 clause AA, read with rule 36 sub rule 4, effective from 1/1/2022. It talks about that ITC would be restricted only when the supplier, which ITC would be restricted, where the supplier filed the GST-R1. In case of the import of the goods, no corresponding supplier filed the R1 because the IceGate portal and the GST portal are integrated. That is as a reason that is auto-populated. But my dear friend, it is not being limited by 36.4, so there is no problem at all. Okay. So coming to the 61 capital A, rule 61 capital A. Manner of opting the furnishing quarterly return. Every registered person indicating to furnish the return on quarterly basis under proviso 2 subsection 1 shall in accordance with the condition restriction. Okay. Sorry. Every registered person who intend to furnish the return on quarterly basis, that is under QRMP, shall indicate his preference for furnishing the return on quarterly basis electronically on the common portal from first day of second month of the preceding quarter till the last day of the first month of the current quarter for which the option is being exercised. Meaning, let's say I like to furnish the currently I am under monthly scheme. Suppose currently I am under monthly scheme. So I am filing the GST-R1 and the GST-R3B on monthly basis. But from April to June quarter, for the April to June quarter, I like to furnish the GST return under QRMP because my turnover does not exceed 5 crore. Please note that QRMP can be opted by the person who is having aggregate turnover up to 5 CR. If my aggregate turnover exceed 5 crore or even if it is below 5 crore, I have not opted this QRMP scheme, then I would be under monthly. I have to indicate my preference. I have to indicate my preference. Where I have to indicate my preference? And what is the time limit to indicate my preference? The indicate is, let's say for April to June quarter, I like to go for QRMP. What is the time limit by which I have to give my preference? Preceding quarter, Jan to March. Second month, Feb. First day of second month means 1st Feb to quarter for which I like to go for QRMP, April to June, first month, April, and last day of April, 30th. It means I have to communicate my preference. I have to communicate my preference between 1st Feb to 30th April if I like to go for QRMP. How this communication would happen? Let me open the portal again. Let me go to the portal. Under the services in the return, you can see that opt in for quarterly. Select this option and let's say I like to go for 23-24. You can see that there are two options, monthly, quarterly. Which option you like to go? Suppose I like to go for QRMP. Then they are saying what is the period the selection would be available 1st Feb to 30th April. Can I select for next quarter? No. Can I select for next? Answer is no, because the option would be available like July to September. What was the previous quarter? April to June. Second month, May. The 1st May to 30th, 1st July. This would be the time period within which I have to select the preference. If you like to go with the same preference which you are under currently, then there is no requirement of selection. So because in this particular login, I am under monthly scheme. So in every quarter, by default, it is coming monthly. Okay. I hope it is clear. Let me go back to the theory. Okay. A registered person whose aggregate turnover exceed 5 crore. Okay. Let's say my turnover is exceed 5 crore during the financial year. Then I have to opt for monthly on the common portal from the first month of the next quarter. It means suppose my turnover exceed in the month of the March, like 19th March, I have received one order by which my aggregate turnover exceed 5 crore. Then whether from 20th March I would be under monthly? Answer is no. From the next quarter, I have to select my preference, change my preference from QRMP to monthly, and from the next quarter, I would be under monthly, not from the current period by which date it has been exceeded. Now, what is the first return? Section 40 talks about the first return. What is the first return? Every registered person who has made outward supply in the period between the date on which he become liable for registration till the date on which registration has been granted shall declare the same in the first return furnished by him after the grant of the registration. So the first return would be the GST R1 and 3B only. When the GST number would be allotted, then only you can enter the details. See, concept of so that is the reason I have put all the rules and theory at one place. I hope this is correct. Huh? This is clear. Huh? The way I am providing the notes, is it okay? Mansa. So probably the chapter would have some other chronological order because of lot of changes. I have copied the relevant rules and section at one place. Now, what is the first return? Suppose my liability to suppose my aggregate turnover exceed on, let's say, 1st March. It cross 40 lakhs or 20 lakhs. I have applied for the registration on 25th March. And my certificate of registration granted on, let's say, 2nd April. Okay. Because my turnover exceed the threshold limit, on 1st March, then the time limit to make the application is 30 days. I have applied within date, correct? So in the registration chapter, probably you have discussed that effective date of the registration. If I have applied within 30 days, then my effective date would be the date of liability. Certificate is being granted on 2nd April. When you open the GST portal, you will file the GST R1 only for the April onwards. And also in that, you are eligible to put the date 2nd April onwards. The question comes that whatever the supplies I have made in this period, how to report the same? What is the first return? The point number 1, the first return would be the day when the GST registration was granted. Okay. That month, GST R1 and 3B would be the first return. You have to add all the supplies. Now the problem is, can I add the supply of the March by putting the date of the March? Answer would be no. Then what to do? you have to issue the revised invoice. What is the concept of revised invoice? According to section 31 subsection 3, that from the date of certificate within 30 days, you have to issue the revised invoice for all the supplies made between effective date till the date of certificate. So इसके बीच में जो भी आपने सप्लाई की है उसका इनवॉइस आपको वापस इश्यू करना पड़ेगा. रिवाइज्ड इनवॉइस and time limit is 30 days, and that revised invoice, because it will have the date 2nd April onward, so you are able to enter the same in the GSTR1. I hope it is clear. Section 41, availment of the input tax credit. Every registered person shall, subject to such condition and restriction as may be prescribed, be entitled to avail the credit of eligible input tax as self-assessed in his return, and such amount shall be credited to the electronic credit ledger. Okay. The credit of the input tax availed by the registered person under subsection 1 in respect of the outward supplies, the tax payable shall be reversed along with applicable interest in the manner as may be prescribed. So let me read again section 41. Every registered person shall, subject to such condition and restriction as may be prescribed, be entitled to take the ITC. So this is section 41 I have copied, but that is not talking about anything with respect to returns. So this is ITC. The credit of input tax availed by the registered person in respect of the supplies, the tax payable has not been paid by the supplier, shall be reversed. So we are talking about rule 88C now. There is a similar concept, rule 37 capital A, correct? So that is related to ITC, so I'm leaving for the time being. You know that there was a concept of two-way communication. Section 42, Section 43, Section 43 capital A, read with rule 69, 70, 71, 72, rule from 69 to 77. All the provision has been omitted by the Finance Act 2022, by which the two-way communication has been done away. The two-way communication has been omitted, done away from the GST law. Okay. Section 44 annual return. So every registered person other than ISD, section 51, 52, casual taxable person, non-resident taxable person shall furnish the annual return, which may include the self-certified reconciliation statement, which is in the form of GSTR 9C. So annual return is the GSTR 9A for the regular category, GSTR 9 for the regular category, composition category GSTR 9A, and for e-commerce operator TCS category GSTR 9B. The due date is 31st December after the end of the financial year, correct? So these are the form number. So one point, that casual taxable person who is filing the GSTR 1 and 3B, but they are not required to file annual return. For composition dealer, the form number is 9A. Please note one thing, the composition dealer, actually they are filing the GSTR 4 also after the year end, and they are also required to file the GSTR 9A after the year end, correct? So, but which is annual return? GSTR 9A is the annual return. GSTR 4 is section 39 return, nothing else. What was two-way communication? So when the GST law was introduced, then they were saying that the supplier will file the GSTR 1. It will communicate it in the GSTR 2. He can furnish the GSTR 2 by adding, modifying, removing the details. So any changes will again communicate it to the supplier in the GSTR 1A. Okay. He can modify, reject everything on 16th and 17th, only 2 date was there. And whatever the changes was made, that will be populated in the GSTR 3 of the supplier. In case of the mismatch, the rule 6970 was talking about MIS1, MIS2. So that is the two-way communication that has been omitted. It was not made available since day one. and that is the reason now it has been omitted. Okay. So this is the annual return I have talked about. Now the final return. What is the final return? Every registered person who is required to furnish the return under section 39 and whose registration has been cancelled, okay, self-file the final return. Final return would be in the GSTR 10, form number GSTR 10, and what would be the 3-month from cancellation date or cancellation order, whichever is later. Okay, and that is GSTR 10, every rule 81. Okay. Now 62. What is that? GST composition dealer. Every registered person paying the tax under section 10 shall furnish the statement every quarter. Shall furnish the statement quarterly basis in the CMP 08 by 18th after the end of the quarter. And in the GSTR 4 that will be filed every financial year. Okay. 30th day of the April following the end of the financial year. Correct? So every registered person furnishing the statement shall discharge his liability, tax, interest payable under this act by debiting the cash ledger. We all know that particular ITC would not be available to the composition dealer. So what is the tax liability they have to pay through cash ledger? The question by Shivam is, isn't the two-way communication seem to be much more effective? It was superb. It was really superb. But the problem is, when the GST was introduced, July 2017, the system was not ready at that point of time. And system was not made effectively for a longer period. And because it was very clumsy in the sense, every person has to be occupied in the return itself. Why? See, the GSTR1 ka due date by 10th, GSTR2 ka due date 11 to 15. He cannot furnish the detail in the GSTR1. Once he furnishes the GSTR2, it will goes to 16 and 17 would be available for making the amendment. He will make the amendment by 20. He has to file the GSTR3B. So it appears that the people would again occupied in the GST return system only for the entire day, for the entire month. That is the reason to give the relaxation. And it has been multiple times. Initially, the concept was 1.5 crore. 5 crore was later on introduced. And because they have not developed, you remember in between, they bring the concept of ANX1, ANX2 in between. Again, that was not implemented properly. So that has been scrapped down. So by them, it was not readily available. And the time it was made available, they have done various permutation, combination, trial and error, effectively not being introduced. And finally, from October 22, they have omitted. But the problem is, till the time that system will not come into the picture, frankly speaking, till the time that system will not come into the picture now, the effective utilization of input tax credit, you read 16 subsection 2 clause C, read rule 37 capital A, read rule 88C, read section 42. It cannot be implemented effectively till the time there would be no feature available of 1, 2, 3, that type of the concept. Maybe the concept can be changed, form number can be changed, but till the time that concept will not bring now, it is not going to be effective. The ITC concept is not going to be effective. So that is the problem. But as of now, the provision does not support or system does not support, as a reason they have omitted. But fully agree with you that that was the perfect way of filing the return. Everything was perfect. First return for all regular taxpayer. Let's read the language now. First return section. Let's read the language. Every registered person. So it can be registered, can be regular, can be composition also, who has made the outward supplies in the period between the date on which he become liable till the date he has granted the shall declare the return in the first furnished by him after the grant of the registration. Oh, okay. Once I have skipped your question, you have asked the question, composition dealer need to file. Yes. So the first return is not a different return. It is not a different return. It is the return which you are filing, which you are required to file, whether it is GSTR4, CMP08, GSTR3B, GSTR1, that is the same return. Only the supply made between these dates prior to the date of granting the certificate, you can add the supply in that return. So fine, that I tell you, since beginning from till today, the 21-22, the annual return, let ignore the first year. See, as of now, I can say as of now, the annual return is relaxed if your aggregate turnover does not exceed 2 crore. So therefore, I can say, can you confirm my statement whether it is correct or any flow or any gap or any incorrect statement in my word? Let me frame one statement that if the composition dealer having the aggregate turnover up to 2 crore, no requirement to file the annual return because of the relaxation. If composition dealer having the aggregate turnover more than 2 crore, then he has to file GSTR 9A mandatorily. Can you confirm whether this statement is correct or any incorrect things which I have communicated? Shivam, fully agree with you. Department is also working on something else which would be available in some time to all of us in the market, probably. My statement was incorrect. Okay, very true. My statement was incorrect because if I am composite dealer, my turnover cannot exceed 1.5 CR. So I told you na, that if my aggregate turnover exceed 2 crore, then I have to file the 9A. Answer is not correct. Why? Because composition dealer ka turnover maximum it can be 1.5 CR. Is it possible to exceed 2 crore? Not possible, sir, because I have to convert from composition to regular. Thank you. So for the explanation, ITC in the registered person opting for withdrawal from the composition at the on motion or where the option is withdrawal at the instant of the proper officer CMP08 for the period for which tax under composition till the 18th, that is okay. What is the content of the GSTR4? Basic and other detail, GST number, legal name, trade name, TDS and TCS credit received, tax, interest, late fees payable and paid, refund claimed, or invoice wise detail of all inward supplies, that is intra and interstate supplies, and from registered and unregistered. Inward they are talking about, correct? Because outward cannot be possible. Summary of self-assessed liability as per the CMP08. Tax rate wise detail of outward supplies, inward supplies attracting RCM, net of advances, credit, debit note, etc. Consolidated details of the outward supplies in the table 6. Okay. Non-resident taxable person required to file GSTR 5, and within 20 days after the end of the tax period or within 7 days after the last date of the validity period of the registration, whichever is earlier. ठीक है, एक second. And every non-resident taxable person shall have to file within 13 days after the end of the calendar month. And what is the rule 60? Sorry, once again, 63. You can say that you have to change again accordingly. The 13th would be the last date, or within 7 days after the after the last day of the validity period of the registration, whichever is earlier. Rule 64. GSTR 5A in case of OIDAR, online information database access retrieval, they have to furnish GSTR 5A. Okay, by 20th. Forms and manner of the submission of return by ISP. Every import service distributor shall, on the basis of the detail contained in the GSTR 6A, be required after adding the, deleting the details in the GSTR 6, containing the detail on which credit has been received and those issued under section 20 through the common portal, either directly or from a facilitation center. What is the 66? that TDS. Every person who is required to deduct the TDS, that is normally government or section 51, all the categories of the person notified under section 51, they are liable to deduct the TDS, and they will file the GSTR 7. And what is the due date of the GSTR 7? By 10th. Detail furnished by the deductor under sub-rule 1 shall be made available to each deductee on the common portal after filing GSTR 7, and by which they can claim the tax deducted in his electronic cash ledger after validation. So I'll also show you that particular, how that amount would be added in the, or how that would be claimed. Take a second. In the services, in the returns, you can see the TDS and TCS credit received. Okay. So like for example, any month. So there is a option TDS and TCS credit received. Once the GST return would be filed, then GST return means GSTR 7 or GSTR 8. Then I being a recipient, suppose I on my supply that is, so I am actually supplier. It is being made to the government or through e-commerce operator on which TDS or TCS has been applied. So I can add in my cash ledger. How? In the services, you have to go TDS and TCS credit received, and here you will find the details. For example, in the, there would be the line item. I will click and accept the same, then furnish. And once it is being furnished with OTP, the amount would be the whatever the TDS or TCS, it would be added to my electronic cash ledger. Sir, the objective was composition schemes to give some relaxation to the small dealer, but I believe there is so much complexity in the scheme with so much restriction. In view, regular scheme is much better. Why, answer? So there are certain less number of the, see, the best, the main difference is number of the returns. So the number of the returns, he has to only pay the taxes quarterly and file return only one, that is GSTR 4. This is the maximum great advantage. And second, see, normally problem would arise because of the input tax credit. So whenever we have seen the notices, etc., the most of the notices are working around the ITC. Major reason that ITC wrongly availed, wrongly passed, and wrongly credit. So if you are composite dealer, then in that case, the chances of the notices to that extent will be reduced. So in two sense, I can say the composition would be okay. But yes, you have to do the cost benefit analysis. Which one would be preferred according to your business strategy, that you have to decide. But yes, these are the 2 points which have to be considered while deciding, should I go for composition or not. Calendar month rather than using the month. So probably they like to say calendar month means 1 to 30 or 30th, 31st. So month, maybe that from date to date, for example, from 16 to 16, it can also be 1 month, correct? So calendar month, they are specifying that it would be like from 1st of the respective month to the 31st or 30th. That could be one of the region. The certificate received referred to in 51 subsection 3 shall be made available in the 7A. In case of the TCS, the supplier will file the GSTR 8 electronically on the common portal. The detail furnished shall be made available to the each of the supplier GSTR 8. Then they can add the amount in the cash ledger after the validation, which we have discussed. Okay. Now the manner of the furnishing the return or the outward supply, it is possible through SMS as well. Now you can furnish the section 39 return, 3B, GSTR 1, CMP 8 through SMS also. Correct. For the purpose of this rule, nil return, only it could be nil return, correct, or nil detail, nil statement shall means the return under section 39 or section 37 or rule 62, that is CMP 08. For a tax period has nil or no entry in all the table of 3B, 1 and 8 as the case may be. Okay. Notice to the return defaulter. So in the GST, there is a form number, that is GSTR 3A. If one is not furnishing the return, then the notice can be issued in the GSTR 3A electronically, who fail to furnish the return under section 39, 44, 45 or 52. शिवम, आपने क्वेश्चन पूछा था क्या? यू हैव आस्क्ड द क्वेश्चन ऑफ वन सर्कुलर एसओपी सर्कुलर 129. एक दिन आपने क्वेश्चन पूछा था, यू वर देयर और समवन एल्स वुड बी देयर, कि why section 40, because best judgment assessment does not include section 44. You were one participant were asking. आप थे या कोई और थे? Fine, no problem. So that is GSTR 3A. Fail to furnish the return under section 39, 44, 45 or 52. Shivam, then again, I have read that circular 129. Actually, because that return under section, I think 46, notice to the defaulter of the return, read with the rule 68, correct? They were talking about, see, the notice can be issued to 39 and including 44, 45 and 52. They are covering 4 categories of the section. Okay. For them, they have issued the circular 129. If you read the language of circular 129, so prima facie, I feel that are not inconsistent with the 62. I cannot say that 62 cover 44. Answer is no, correct. That is not cover annual letter. But point is, because GSTR 3A can be issued for 44, and you read the circular 129 in line with the rule 68, it is not inconsistent. So therefore, I can say the SOP would not only for 62, but it would also cover the section 44 or 52 returns. Probably that could be my one immediate answer to the question which you have asked earlier. ठीक है, एक बार आप भी रीड करना, and if you got some another view, then you can also share to me. Matching of the detail furnished by the e-commerce operator. So now let me move to the first study material and think and let's see that what the point which I have missed as of now. Okay. So let me quickly go through. So first point I have missed, the content of the GSTR 3B. What is the content of the GSTR 3B? Let me move to the GSTR 3B. Let me move to the GSTR 3B. Tax on outward supplies and RCM inward supplies. Supplies notified under section 95, that is deemed supply, which we have discussed, correct? Like transportation, example, Ola, Uber, hotel accommodation like OYO rooms, MMT, small carpenting, plumbing like Urban Clap, Urban Company, and last is restaurant like Zomato, Swiggy. So that will be considered as a deemed supplier, and they have to report in this. Interstate supply. So if it is B2C, unregistered, it means, or composition taxable person or UIN holder. Okay. And it is interstate, correct? Then you have to enter the details in the 3.2. Main purpose of 3.2, again repeating, main purpose of 3.2 to do the settlement of the IGST. To do the settlement of IGST. See, normally I can say, Shivam, even though there is no best judgment, but at least penalty can be levied now. At least penalty can be levied. Even though there is no liability would be there from the GSTR 9, fully agree. But liability to pay the taxes is not arise. Okay? But at least penalty would be, late fees would be there, right? So that can be the GSTR 3. If the notice has been given GSTR 3 and not filed the return, then they have to pay the at least late fees. And for that, best judgment assessment would be lead to the only for the late fees also. One answer, one possibility which I can say. Okay. Because the late fees in the GST 9 is very, very high. 200 rupees per day, subject to the maximum of 0.50%. 0.25 is CGST, 0.25 is GST, and that is linked to the turnover. Huge late fees for the annual return. My God. Eligible ITC, exempted, nil rated, non-GST, interest, late fees, previous tax period, and payment of tax. Now let's move to the notes. So GST number, legal name, year, month, quarter. Summarize detail of outward supplies, inward supplies liable to RCM. That is table 3.1. Summarize detail of interstate supplies made to unregistered person, composite taxable person, and UIN holder. Eligible ITC and ineligible ITC. Value the exempted, nil rated, non-GST. Payment of the taxes, TDS and / TCS credit receipt. So now this actually, it was there in the law. But actually they have omitted from the GSTR. They have omitted from the GSTR 3 forms and they have made separate section. They have omitted from the GSTR 3B and they have made separate section, which I have shown to you, that to claim the input tax, claim the TCS and TDS credit, how to claim the same. Correct? Na? We have discussed that. एक मिनट दीजिएगा फिर. Give me 1 minute only. Okay. So that is okay. So GSTR 3B, GSTR content of the GSTR 4 we have discussed, and auto population nil. That is okay. GSCMP 08. Now we have to discuss that this fix sum method and self-assessment method. That part is pending. We have to discuss. Okay. Now that is a chart showing that if you are switching over from composition and regular or regular to composition. Let's read that chart. Suppose you are under regular, like to go for the composition, means opt in for composition, and you are under composition, like to go for regular, that is opt out from composition. This is available at any point of time, no restriction. But yes, regular to composition is restricted. You cannot go in between of the year. The 31st March would be the last date to furnish the CMP form to go to the composition. Composition would be effective from the first day of the next year. Okay. Then statement or returns relating to the period prior to opting for composition to be filed till the due date of furnishing the return for the month of the September succeeding the financial year, or furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier. So that is, we all know that it's being amended. September ki jagah November ho gaya, so that is okay. Okay, the corresponding changes would be here also. But yes, till the time I was under regular, now I have to file the return for that particular regular category. And once I will be under composition, then I have to pay the taxes through CMP 8 and file the GSTR 4. Okay. 18th day of the month succeeding the quarter in which the details of date of withdrawal falls, and 30th April following the end of the financial year in which such a withdrawal falls. Okay. GSTR 5 is okay, and GSTR 6 we have discussed. Then GSTR 7 we have also discussed. GSTR 7 we have discussed. Due date of the payment of tax we have discussed. Okay. And yes, fix sum method and self-assessment method. What is that? Self-assessment method is very clear, very simple, that you have to calculate your liability by considering the total sale, total ITC, total RCM, everything you have to calculate, and then you determine the and pay the taxes through PMT 6. Now, what is the fixed sum method? It is also called as 35% method. Now, if the taxpayer chooses this option, then for making the payment, what is the 35% tax payment? So this will, for example, let me go to the whiteboard and then explain. See, I have opted QRMP, correct? For month 1, and month 2, I will pay the taxes through PMT06 by 25th of next month. Correct. For making the payment of the taxes, there are two options, fixed sum method or self-assessment method. In the fixed sum method, there are two parts. I can say 35% or 100%. What is that? Let me discuss. Let's say I am under QRMP in the April to June quarter. Let's say in the April to June quarter, I am under QRMP. I know that for the month of April and for the month of May, I have to pay the taxes through PMT06. While making the payment, I can use any method, fixed sum method or self-assessment method. Suppose I am choosing fixed sum method, then how much amount I have to deposit? They are saying you are calculating for the QRMP for the quarter April to June. What was the frequency of last quarter? That was Jan to March. What was the frequency? Two options. Either I am under QRMP or I am under monthly. Possible, na? Suppose I am under QRMP or I am under monthly. I'm talking about the last quarter. If you are under QRMP, then GSTR 3B, which I have furnished for this quarter, obviously that would also represent for the quarter. So GSTR 3B, which I have furnished for the last quarter, that is represent the liability of 3 months. Na? So they are saying whatever the liability which you have reported in the GSTR 3B for quarter, let's say there is a total liability of 1000 rupees. I have used ITC, let's say 600 rupees, and I have discharged the liability in cash 400 rupees. Because it is of quarter, then they are saying, fixed sum method is saying the amount which you paid in cash multiply by 35%. So 140 would be deposited for April and 140 would be deposited for May. Exactly same amount, because they are saying go to the previous quarter frequency. If it is under QRMP, whatever the liability of deposited in cash multiply by 35%. If no liability paid in cash, no amount to be deposited in fixed sum method for April and for May. No liability. Or also it will be calculated by the system itself. That is the beauty. Now the second possibility, suppose for Jan to March, I was under monthly. So for the March month, the GSTR 3B I have furnished by reporting the liability of March only, that is of 1 month only, right? So they are saying in the GSTR 3B of March, whatever the liability which you have paid through electronic cash ledger, equivalent amount should be deposited for April and for May. This is basically the provision of fixed sum method and self-assessment method. Could you please confirm that? Is it clear to all? Could you please confirm that? Is it clear to all? So they've given the example. You can refer the example also. Fine. Thank you. Applicability of interest for registered person making the payment of the tax by opting fixed sum method. Then no interest would be payable if the tax due is paid for first 2 months of the quarter by depositing auto-calculated fixed amount by the due date, that is 25th. So if the amount is not deposited by the due date, then yes, interest would be applicable. Then if I have opted fixed sum method, if I opted self-assessment method, then interest amount would be applicable as per the section 50, which remain unpaid beyond the due date for the first 2 months of the quarter. Correct. that is okay. Time limit to make the rectification we have discussed, and rectification of error we have discussed. This part, other returns, first return we have discussed in detail. GSTR 8 we have discussed in detail, and last detail to filing the statement rectification we have discussed. Rectification we have discussed or not? The time limit to rectify the mistake in the GSTR 8 now, that is same. GSTR 8 is annual return, right? Not annual return. What is that GSTR 8? I forgot. What was the GSTR 8? Can anybody tell me? What was the GSTR 8? GSTR 8 क्या था? Can anybody tell me? Actually slipped from my mind. GSTR 8 क्या था? मैं भूल गया. Please help me to recall. GSTR 8 would be furnished by the e-commerce operator in case of the TCS. ठीक है. They also can do the rectification. TCS, मानसा, it is TCS, not TDS. TDS के केस में क्या होगा? GSTR 7. ठीक है. Again, for that, the time limit is same. 30th November or furnishing of annual return, whichever is earlier. GSTR 9, GSTR 9A, GSTR 9B, we have discussed. Correct. Reconciliation statement, that part we have not discussed. Let me discuss here. Section 35, subsection 5, which was now omitted. Earlier, section 35, subsection 5 talks about if your aggregate turnover exceed 2 crore, which was now extended to 5 crore, then you have to certify your, you have to get audited or GST audit, that is also called as the GST audit, reconciliation statement and certification from the professional chartered accountant or the practicing chartered accountant, practicing cost accountant. That provision 35.5 has been omitted and now it is self-certification. It means if my aggregate turnover is exceed 5 crore, if my aggregate turnover exceed 5 crore, in that case, I have to furnish GSTR 9C. 9C is the form number, reconciliation statement, by doing the self-certification. Now, there is no requirement of certification from the professional. Okay. Then GSTR 10, we have discussed final return. Okay. And GSTR 11, that is okay. GSTR 5A, we have discussed OI dark estimate. Okay. Now the default or delay in furnishing the return, section 46 and 47. So we have discussed notice to the return defaulter, 46 read with rule 68. We have discussed. And what is the late fees? Yes, that is important. The late fees is applicable for the delay in furnishing the returns. Correct. Statement of outward supplies, returns, that is GSTR 3B, including QRMP, and the final return. What is the quantum of the late fees? See, the point is that this point I have discussed in the penalty chapter also. Here also I'm talking about the penalty which we are, or the late fees which we are talking about. It is 100 rupees per day, subject to the maximum of 5,000. It is CGST Act. So similar amount of SGST would also be there. So I can say 200 rupees per day, subject to the maximum of 10,000. It was in the law. Okay. And section 44, annual return. So 200 rupees per day, subject to the maximum of 0.25% of the turnover, whichever is lower. Okay. Now the late fees can be waived under section 128 we have discussed. Now we have to discuss something here. Point number 1. The GSTR 3B, the late fees has been reduced. Okay. What is the late fees? They are saying if you have the nil liability, nil tax liability, then late fees per day would be 20 rupees. 10 CGST, 10 SGST. If you have the tax liability, the per day late fees would be rupees 50, 25 CGST, 25 SGST. Point number 1. Point number 2, from 1 June 2021. 1 June 2021, the late fees has been rationalized. And mainly the rationalization was for upper cap. Rationalization was for upper cap. GSTR 3B and GSTR 1. The upper cap has been divided in 4 parts. They are saying if your aggregate, if you have the nil return, okay, then maximum late fees would be 500 rupees, 250 CGST and 250 SGST. If you have the tax liability, then they have divided in 3 parts. Aggregate turnover up to 1.5 CR, then maximum late fees would be 2000 rupees, 1000 plus 1000 for GSTR 3B and GSTR 1. If your aggregate turnover greater than 1.5 crore but up to 5 CR, then late fees, maximum late fees would be 5000 GSTR 3B as well as GSTR 1. If your aggregate turnover exceeding 5 crore, then same, that is 10,000, 5,000 CGST, 5,000 SGST. This is for GSTR 3B and GSTR 1. GSTR 4, they are saying yes, it would be upper cap would be 2,000 rupees, and if it is a nil, 500. Same for GSTR 7 TDS. They have rationalized the late fees in this manner. Give me 1 minute. Give me 1 minute only. ठीक है, 1 मिनट दीजिएगा मुझे खाली. एक सेकेंड, तो मैं अगर कुछ आपको बता सकूं, if I can say share the same something, that notification would be great. So I hope this is visible to all of you. What is the rationalization of late fees? GSTR 3B and GSTR 1, you can refer this notification also for your better understanding. If the tax liability is nil, then maximum late fees would be 500 rupees. So please note, from 1 June 2021, they have not rationalized the per day late fees. It is already rationalized because instead of 200, they have made 20 or 50. If you have the tax liability in the GSTR 3B as well as in GSTR 1, then up to 1.5 CR, 2000, matlab 1000 plus 1000, 1.5 to 5, it is 5000, and more than 5 crore, it is 10,000. If you are talking about GSTR 4, then GSTR 4, the tax liability is nil, then rupees 500. If having tax liability, maximum late fees would be 2000 rupees. In case of the GSTR 7, they have reduced the late fees per day, rupees 250, and maximum late fees, they are saying 2000 rupees. I hope it is clear now. Now it is, I can say, the better clarity. Let me go to the, again, further part. That GST practitioner, section 48, what is the eligibility? GST practitioner, Indian citizen, sound mind, not adjudicated as an insolvent, not being convicted by the competent court. Satisfied any of the condition? Yes. Retired officer of the CTD, Commercial Tax Department of any state, or CBIC during service under government, had worked in the post not lower than the rank of the Group B gazetted officer. Enrolled as a cell tax practitioner or income tax return preparer under the earlier indirect, not income tax return preparer under the indirect tax law for the period of not less than 5 years. Has acquired any of the specified qualification mentioned below: graduate, postgraduate, degree examination of the university recognized by Indian University as equivalent to the degree examination, any other examination notified by the government, any degree examination of Indian University, have passed ICI, ICSI, etc. what are the activity which can be undertaken by the GSTP? Furnish details of the outward. Now the inward has been omitted. So there is an amendment by which inward has been omitted because they have omitted the GSTR 2 also. So hence corresponding amendment was made in the activity to be undertaken by the GSTP. Monthly return, annual return, final return, make deposit, furnish e-way bill, details of the challan, application for amendment, application for registration, composition, withdrawal, file the claim for the refund. So refund application. So they were allowed to do the completely theoretical point. So you can read the provision and information return section 150 and section 123 we have discussed, we have covered in the penalty provisions. Correct. Section 150 you talked about that section 150 he has to furnish the written information return. Who are required to furnish the information return? Tax, income tax, tax authority, ROC, electricity, insurance company, GST, they have to furnish the information return. If not, then they are liable to pay the penalty under section 123. Okay, so that is 100 rupees per day during which such failure continue and 5,000. It will be doubled because it is of CGST. Okay, so by this we have completed the chapter. Let's now we have the 20 minutes to do the revision of the entire chapter. If you have any question, kindly ask. Otherwise, I will move. I will move to the round of the question answer. कोई क्वेश्चन आपका? मानसा ने कुछ पूछा, एक मिनट रुकना, मैं एक बार देख लेता हूँ. सो okay. Maybe have you checked the amendment wala part also? They have given the revision, means amendment on also na supplementary study paper. That you also checked? How to learn all these provisions? But कहावत है ना हिंदी में, करत करत अभ्यास के जड़मत यो सुजान, रसरी आवाज जात के सिल पर पड़त निशान. वही वाली कहावत है. Daily practice कीजिए. It is very simple. When you enjoy the indirect tax, the beauty of the indirect tax is the enjoyment. When you start enjoying in the indirect tax, you will not forget any provision. I can 100% say. Acha, you were saying that rationalization is not being covered in that also, is it? Give me 1 minute. I'll also check. Okay, maybe I'll discuss with them and then ensure to provide the things in that case. Okay. Should we learn section number also? No, not required at all. So किस का सेक्शन नंबर याद करोगे? कंपनीज लॉ का, इनकम टैक्स का, जीएसटी का, कस्टम का. So if your concept is clear na, to the understanding of mine, you can cross check with the current pattern. But to the understanding of mine, if your concept is clear, even though you can ignore the section number, that would be sufficient to get the good mark. Shall we start the quick round? Any other question? Shall we start the quick round? आज बहुत कुछ है पूछने के लिए, and today is the last class also. So my humble request, please give the feedback on the mail to the board of studies. ये काम जरूर करना. It will help me either improving or continuing. There could be two way. या तो मैं कंटिन्यू कर लूंगा या मैं इंप्रूव कर लूंगा अपने आप को, दोनों में से कोई एक चीज होगी. ठीक है. So please make sure. So shall we start the quick round? ठीक है ना, स्टार्ट करते हैं. First tell me, what is the due date of the GSTR1? What is the due date of the GSTR1? What is the due date of the GSTR1? You have to divide. मंथली के केस में क्या होगा, क्वार्टरली के केस में क्या होगा? I'm waiting for your answer. Yes. In case of monthly, it is 11. In case of monthly, it is 11, and in case of quarterly, it is 13. Can you please tell me, if I have opted QRMP, which document or which statement I will furnish for month 1 and month 2? The name of the statement in place of the GSTR1, which I will furnish for month 1 and month 2 under QRMP. Yes, the name of that statement is IFF, Invoice Furnishing Facility. I have not furnished the IFF by 13th. Let's say I'm talking about January, February, March. For the month of Feb, I have to furnish the IFF on 13th. I have not furnished. Can I furnish on 14th? Can I furnish the IFF on 14th? Can I furnish IFF on 14th? Can I furnish IFF on 14th? Yes or no? The answer is no. Answer is no. Is there any limit for IFF that we can report this much of the amount in the IFF only? Is there any limit of transaction which we can report in the IFF, or any amount we can report? Kaushik, it will, for the March, it will not be IFF, it will be the GSTR1. Is there any limit, upper limit, we can put the amount in the IFF, or is there no limit? Absolutely correct. The maximum value would be in IFF. I'm not talking months. I'm not talking about the aggregate turnover. I'm talking about what is the limit of invoices we can add in the IFF. The limit is 50 lakh rupees. If we have, see, the sales which I have reported in the IFF, should I have to report again in the GSTR1 or not? The details which I have furnished in the IFF, should I have to report in the GSTR1 also for the entire quarter or not? Not again. Absolutely correct. Kausiki, if invoice is greater than 50 lakh, then I can add in the subsequent IFF, or I can add in the R1. There is no problem. Can you please tell me the difference between 2A and 2B? It is a longer question. It is a slightly longer answer. So please try to give the answer that what is the difference between 2A and 2B? What is the difference between 2A and 2B? GSTR 2A and GSTR 2B. कोई एक या दो difference बता दीजिए. That's great. 2A is okay, 2B is ठीक है, okay, perfectly, not perfectly, you can add one more or two more things. Please add some more fact for the 2A and 2B ka difference. What is the difference between 2A and 2B? Very good question. Let me give the answer. 2A is a dynamic document, 2B is a static document. What is the meaning? 2A can be downloaded at any point of time, but 2B would be made available only after 13. Only after 13. Okay, only after 13. And 2A is not used for the ITC, whereas 2B would be used for input tax credit. 2B would be used for input tax credit, correct? So fine, thank you so much. 2B is the ITC self-generated? Yes, absolutely correct, Sivam. Great, very good answer. Now, in case of QRMP, what is the due date of the GSTR 3B? In case of the QRMP, what is the due date of the GSTR 3B? कौशिक डाउनलोड किया था मैंने, हो गए होंगे 20 minutes. So maybe मतलब I have to log in again, but let me focus on that particular now question answer. The question is, what is the due date for GSTR 3B in case of the QRMP? (22) or 24 as the case may be. 22 या 24, ठीक है, as per the state, correct. Let's say my turnover is below 5 crore. Can I go for monthly? If my turnover is below 5 crore, can I go for monthly? Instead of QRMP, can I go for monthly? Can I go for monthly instead of quarterly? Instead of QRMP, let's say my turnover is below 5 crore. Can I go for monthly? I do not like to go for QRMP. Can I? Answer is yes, I can. Answer is yes, there is no problem, I can. If my turnover is below 5 crore and I am not under QRMP, what is the due date for GSTR 3B? 20, 22, 24 or क्या होगा? Whether it will be 20 or it will be 22, 24. Whether it will be 20 or 22, 24. What is the right answer? In case my turnover is below 5 crore, I have opted monthly, not QRMP. Then what would be the due date for GSTR 3B? It will always be 20. Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Next question. That suppose I like to go for QRMP from Jan to March quarter. For Jan to March quarter, I like to go for QRMP. Currently, I am under monthly. Let's say I am sitting in the month of October. I am under currently monthly. My question, I am interested to go for QRMP. Can you please tell me the period within which I have to express my option to the portal, GST portal? I like to go for QRMP from Jan to March quarter. What is the period within which I have to convey my preference? There is a period which we have discussed, that between this date and this date, I have to, between this to this date, I have to convey my preference. What is the period? My period for which I like to go for, I am interested to go for QRMP, that is Jan to March. I am sitting in the month of October, interested to go for Jan to March. What is the time limit within which I have to select the preference? Absolutely correct. In this case, the second month ka first day, that is 1st November, to first month ka last day, that is 31st Jan. Absolutely correct. 1st November to 31st Jan. Thank you so much. Then, can you please tell me what is the annual return form number for composition taxpayer? What is the annual return form number for composition taxpayer? Thank you so much. What is the annual return form number for composition taxpayer? The GSTR 9A. What is the due date to file the return GSTR 4? In case of the composition dealer, what is the due date to file the GSTR 4? Yes, the GSTR 4 to be furnished GSTR 4 to be furnished by 30th April after the end of the financial year. Absolutely correct. Can you please tell me which form or statement need to be furnished nil even if there is no transaction during the period? As per the GST provisions, certain forms or statement has to be furnished nil also even though there is no transaction. What are those? कौन कौन से हैं वो? GSTR 3B, GSTR 1 and CMP 08. GSTR 3B, GSTR 1 and CMP 08. Can you please tell me the form number of the final return? Can you please tell me the form number of final return? Yes, GSTR 10. The form number would be GSTR 10 for final return. What is the due date to file the final return? What is the due date to file the final return? What is the due date to file the final return? Yes, 3 months from the date of cancellation of order or date of cancellation which is being sought, whichever is later, and from that we have to furnish the GSTR 10 within 3 months. Correct, 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 correct. Absolutely correct. So, in case of the input service distributor, please tell the form number in which inward supply would be auto-populated. The input service distributor, the inward supply would be auto-populated. In which form number the inward supply would be auto-populated for the ISD registration? The GSTR 6A. GSTR 6A. Now, what is the, we are talking about the late fees. Now, regarding the late fees, what is the late fees for annual return? What is the late fees for annual return? What is the late fees for annual return? Yes, 100 rupees per day, subject to the maximum of 0.25, not 0.05, 0.25. Yes, you can double it. Fully agree with you. 200 rupees per day, subject to the maximum of 0.50% of the turnover. That is very huge. Correct. Regarding the rationalization of late fees, I am talking about. Now I am talking about rationalization of late fees. If I have the nil tax liability, what is the per day late fees and what is the upper cap? What is the per day late fees and what is the upper cap? What is the per day late fees and what is the upper cap? GSTR 3B in case of nil return. What is the per day late fees and what is the maximum late fees in case my GSTR 3B having the nil tax liability? What is the per day late fees and what is the maximum late fees? What is the per day late fees and what is the maximum late fees if my tax liability is nil? The answer is per day late fees rupees 20, 10 plus 10, and subject to the maximum of 500, that is 250 plus 250. What is the maximum late fees if my aggregate turnover is up to 5 CR and up to 1.5 CR? What is the maximum late fees for GSTR 3B or the GSTR fund having the tax liability अगर मेरी aggregate turnover is up to 1.5 CR? Viraj, Shruti Lakshmi, kindly give the reply. Upper cap would be 2,000 rupees, 1,000 CGST, 1,000 SGST. Quickly tell me the upper cap for aggregate turnover exceeding 1.5 CR but up to 5 CR. What is the upper cap of the late fees for GSTR 3B and GSTR 1 having tax liability? It would not be IGST. Kaushiki, it would not be IGST. It would be C plus S, 2,500 CGST, 2,500 SGST, total 5,000. Whereas 100 rupees per day nahi hai. It has been reduced to 50 rupees per day. If it is tax liability, then late fees per day would be 50. And 50 rupees means 25 CGST, 25 SGST. Upper cap would be if my aggregate turnover more than 1.5 CR and up to 5 CR, then upper cap would be 5,000. Okay. So nice. I have completed my classes also, which has been allotted by institute, and this was my last class. Hope you all have enjoyed the discussion. Again, my last request would be please connect with me on the social media LinkedIn profile so that I would be updated whenever you enhance your in career or whenever you clear exams. And second thing, kindly give the feedback to the board of studies regarding my pattern of teaching, regarding my content, everything, so that true feedback, whether it can be improvement also for me or it can be positive feedback also for me. Both are acceptable to me, but must give the feedback to the board of studies. That is my humble request. Okay. Thank you very much. Goodbye to all of you. Any point, any like, we'll wait for a minute and then we'll wind up the discussion. And if you have any doubt, you can mail to board of studies. There is an email ID probably, correct? On that email ID, you can mail your doubt and in turn you will receive the answer. If it is belongs to my chapter, I will means allocated the question probably, and then I will give my answer to that. Thank you very much. Goodbye to all of you. Ashok ji, you can wind up the today's session.